The regulatory risks are unacceptable. You have options, I replied carefully. Do I? Our contract with Triumph is binding. Breaking it would trigger penalties that would exceed our annual technology budget. Unless Triumph is in material breach through performance failures, I suggested, which your legal team is likely exploring right now. Vanessa's slight smile confirmed my assumption. We would still need an immediate alternative. Regulatory reporting can't wait for a new vendor selection process. I slid a flash drive across the table. This contains a technical overview of Pinnacle's platform. It was built specifically to address the issues you're experiencing. We can deploy within 3 weeks with zero regulatory interruption. She pocketed the drive without examining it. Triumph claims you violated non-compete agreements. They've made that claim, yes, but their legal position has significant weaknesses, which our counsel has documented. I provided a second flash drive. This contains our attorney's analysis. Your legal team will find it illuminating. Vanessa nodded once. I'll be in touch. 2 days later, Triumph announced an emergency stabilization of Meridian systems, effectively admitting their integration approach had failed. Their stock dropped 8% by market close. That evening, I received an official request for proposal from Meridian Energy Group, bypassing their normal procurement process under emergency provisions. I gathered our team. This is it. Meridian needs a solution immediately, and we've built exactly what they require. Everything we've worked for comes down to this proposal. Jason looked around the room at our small but determined team. Should we be concerned about Triumph's response when they realize what's happening? I shook my head. They've created their own crisis. Now they'll have to watch us solve it. The Meridian board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Thursday. By 10:45, my phone rang. Unanimous approval, Vanessa said without preamble. Expedited contract execution. We need implementation to begin Monday. Within the hour, our attorney confirmed the contract was clean. No hidden clauses or traps. Meridian had agreed to our full implementation fee plus a 3-year maintenance agreement. The numbers were substantial enough to secure Pinnacle's future for years. More importantly, the contract included a specific indemnification against Triumph's potential legal claims. Meridian's attorneys had reviewed our position and confirmed what we already knew. Triumph's non-compete claims couldn't stand up to serious scrutiny. The news hit the industry by mid-afternoon. Triumph stock dropped another 12%. Their legal team immediately filed for an emergency injunction to block our contract. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning, the same day our implementation was set to begin. When we arrived at the courthouse, Triumph had 4 attorneys present, led by their chief counsel. Caroline sat behind them, her expression tight with controlled anger. The judge reviewed the filings efficiently, then looked directly at Triumph's team. Your non-compete agreements appear to prohibit using proprietary Red Forge systems, but evidence suggests Pinnacle developed independent architecture. Furthermore, Meridian's filing demonstrates urgent public interest in maintaining utility service reliability. She denied the injunction without further deliberation. As we exited the courtroom, Caroline intercepted me in the hallway. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "Triumph doesn't lose." I met her gaze steadily. This was never about winning or losing. It was about building something that actually works. I walked past her to where my team waited. Together, we left to begin the implementation that would secure both Meridian systems and Pinnacle's future. The quiet victory felt complete. 18 months after the Meridian contract, Pinnacle Dynamics had grown to 27 employees. We occupied the entire floor of a building in downtown Boulder with views of the mountains that had witnessed both my professional collapse and resurrection. The Meridian implementation had been flawless, completed ahead of schedule with zero service interruptions. Word spread through the industry. 4 more major clients migrated to our platform within a year. Triumph eventually abandoned their legal pursuit, focusing instead on containing the damage to their energy division. Caroline Vega was reassigned to a subsidiary in another state. Tyler Thompson departed for a startup incubator, wiser for the experience. Harold occasionally stopped by our offices, pride evident as he watched a vision reborn. He never officially joined Pinnacle, but his guidance remained invaluable. On the 2nd anniversary of my termination, I received an unexpected email from my former boss at Red Forge, the person who had hired me 12 years earlier. You built something better than we ever could have, he wrote. Several of us saw it coming, but couldn't prevent the acquisition. Some victories take time. I closed my laptop and walked to the conference room where our team was celebrating the completion of a new module. These were no longer just colleagues. They were partners who had taken the same risk I had, believing that competence and integrity would eventually outperform corporate politics. Later that evening, I stood alone on my deck at home, watching the sunset paint the mountains. The bitter taste of betrayal had faded, replaced by something unexpected. Gratitude. Without Triumph's arrogance, without Caroline's dismissal, Pinnacle might never have existed. I hadn't just reclaimed my career. I'd built something more aligned with my values than Red Forge could have become under Triumph's direction. Sometimes getting pushed out of the wrong place is exactly what you need to find the right one. She wasn't wrong. For more than 10 years, I'd turned down offers from bigger outfits with fatter paychecks and fancier titles. Victor made me feel like family. Embercore wouldn't be where it is today without you, he'd say. We never formalized equity, my oversight, but I've always intended to make things right once we hit our stride. Then 3 years ago, Victor fell ill, and his son Tyler stepped in. Tyler held an impressive MBA, but he didn't share his father's fire. His focus shifted from building for the long haul to making Embercore a buyout target. Innovation goals gave way to quarterly reports, and when I raised concerns in the exec suite, Tyler would flash a polite smile and say, "We'll revisit this, Marco." We never did. 6 months before the acquisition announcement, I'd overheard Tyler in a closed-door meeting with Atlas Energy execs, mapping out which teams would be deemed redundant. My division topped that list. That night, over scrawled schematics and half-empty coffee cups, I sketched the first outlines of what would become NovaGrid Solutions, a new venture built on everything Atlas was ready to discard. I kept my designs under wraps, delivered my projects flawlessly, and waited. If they kept me, I'd remain loyal. If not, I was prepared. The warning signs escalated quickly. I noticed that Elena was scheduling one-on-one check-ins with every department head except me. My name disappeared from strategic planning threads. 2 days before my final call, HR's Matthew pinged me for a quick chat about team realignments. Still, I updated doc after doc, trained every junior engineer, convinced myself I was indispensable. Then came the 7-minute Zoom where she delivered my transition package. She had no idea that while she recited the severance details, I was already texting Priya. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m. my place. We need to talk about the NovaGrid plan." 5 of my closest colleagues showed up that evening. Their stories mirrored mine. Sidelined innovations, quarter-chasing directives, concerns brushed aside. They were hungry for something better. A few weeks later, I watched Elena's first company-wide presentation as an outsider. Standing beneath the same stage that once celebrated our breakthroughs, she announced Embercore systems would be phased out in favor of Atlas's aging enterprise suite, a platform 3 years behind the curve. In the audience, I saw the same shock on engineers' faces that I felt, the realization that our hard-earned advancements were about to vanish. I didn't raise my hand during the Q&A. I watched who nodded along and who stared at their notes, eyes hollow. Afterward, I retreated to my car in the parking garage. Sat there for nearly an hour, engine off, coffee gone cold, thinking, this wasn't just about me losing my job. This wasn't just about losing a job. It was watching something I'd helped build being deliberately dismantled by people who didn't grasp its worth. That evening, I opened my laptop and put the finishing touches on the business plan I'd been drafting in secret. What began as a mere contingency was fast becoming reality. I set up a secure group chat called The Grid with the 5 engineers who'd gathered at my house after my termination. "If you're ready to build something better," my message read, "I have a proposal. Discretion essential." Every reply pinged back within minutes. Count me in. Over the next 3 weeks, our Grid sessions became ritual. In my living room, we dissected Atlas's missteps, the outdated architecture, the clients they were about to alienate, the blind spots in their integration strategy. We cataloged every feature that had made Embercore's systems superior and sketched how to evolve them, careful to steer clear of any direct copying so as not to trigger a valid intellectual property challenge. Meanwhile, I used part of my severance to lease a modest office suite and filed the incorporation paperwork for NovaGrid Solutions, its name chosen to signal a higher vantage point, A new grid built atop old foundations. The day after my final paycheck landed, I got a text from Tyler Allen, Victor's son and now Atlas's point man on the acquisition. "Heard you're up to something. Let's talk before you do anything rash." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to negotiate. Conversations had died the moment Elena Ruiz decided my 12 years of work didn't fit their structure. Instead, I sent a one-line update to my team. Office secured. Papers filed. Timeline accelerated. "Can you resign tomorrow?" 5 different, absolutely, confirmations lit up my phone almost instantly. 3 months after Novagrid's launch, we landed our first big contract. Solstice Manufacturing, a mid-sized plant that had relied on Embercore's tools for years. Their operations lead, Sofia Alvarez, joined our demo call. "Atlas's team just tries to cram us into a one-size-fits-all suite," she said. "They don't understand our workflows." We presented Novagrid's platform, rooted in Embercore's core principles but redesigned for flexibility and performance. By the end of the call, Sofia was ready to sign on the spot. 2 days later, I received a certified letter stamped from Atlas Energy's legal department. They accused us of breaching the non-compete and misappropriating proprietary data. Litigation threats, immediate cease and desist, the works. I'd anticipated this. My attorney, Liana Carr, had already flagged the overbroad language in their non-compete. It lumped energy management solutions into a catch-all category so vague it couldn't hold up in court. There was no smoking gun of stolen code or designs. Still, dragging a Fortune 200 juggernaut into months of legal wrangling would bleed our fledgling budget dry. I decided on a direct approach, request a face-to-face with Elena Ruiz. She agreed, perhaps expecting me to wilt under intimidation. We met in Atlas's gleaming downtown high-rise, the Embercore insignia relegated to a dusty corner of reception. "You know this can't continue," Elena said the moment I sat down. "Novagrid is direct competition for the platform you built here." "Funny," I replied evenly. "The integration roadmap you published phases out my exact innovations over the next 18 months. I slid our system benchmarks across the table. Our architecture's entirely original. We didn't repurpose any legacy code." Her jaw tightened. "Still, you violated the spirit of your agreement and poached talent." She leaned in. "Look, Marco, litigation will consume you. You have what? 3 months of runway. We could hire you back as a consultant. 2-year term, excellent compensation. It was the offer's real aim. Trap me under a legal umbrella to snuff out any threat. Thanks, but I'll take my chances with Novagrid," I said, standing. That afternoon, Atlas's lawyers called Solstice Manufacturing and 2 other prospects, warning of potential IP disputes if they worked with us. Sofia called me in a panic. "They're threatening to void our existing agreements if we sign with you." Within 24 hours, 3 deals evaporated. Suddenly, our runway shrank from months to weeks. That evening in our cramped office, the team's faces were drawn. They looked to me for direction. "They're playing hardball," I admitted, "but they've made a strategic blunder." I pulled up an email I'd received that morning from Victor Allen, Embercore's founder, now retired in California. "Marco, I've watched this unfold. Atlas didn't just buy our tech, they inherited our problems. Give me a call. I think I can help." I met their gazes. Atlas is so busy trying to crush us that they're neglecting their own integration. "We have one window. If we can prove our platform delivers measurable savings faster than their suite, they'll be forced to respond. And with Victor's backing, we'll have the credibility to do it." They nodded, determination flickering back. This was more than a fight for survival. It was a chance to vindicate the decade we'd poured into Embercore's vision. And this time, we would build it right. We understood Embercore's vulnerabilities better than anyone. "Atlas's new platform is already failing key clients," Priya said, her voice low as she scrolled through support tickets on her tablet. "And those clients will need fixes, fast," I added. "Atlas can't deliver in time. They're trying to bury us in legal threats while their own codebase crumbles," said Aiden. "We don't have to beat them in court. We just need to be ready when their customers come looking for alternatives." The next morning, I drove to Victor Allen's lake house on Lake Travis, away from prying eyes. At 72, Victor moved more deliberately than in his Embercore days, but his mind was razor-sharp. He spread a stack of files across the dining table. They didn't just buy Embercore's tech, he said, voice measured. They bought our client agreements, especially the Meridian Energy Group account. I nodded. Meridian was our largest contract, a regional utility serving 3 states, nearly 30% of Embercore's annual revenue. Victor slid over an internal memo from Atlas leadership, leaked by a board member who still answered his calls. They promised Meridian a seamless cutover, he explained. But the timeline they've published is 6 months, when it took us 4 years to build. My heart sank. Atlas intended to strip out every customization we'd painstakingly developed. When Meridian discovered the forced standardization, they'd face operational hiccups and possibly regulatory penalties for downtime. Meridian's contract has a 99% uptime guarantee, I said, leaning in. If they slip, Atlas owes them serious penalties. Victor's eyes glinted. Exactly. Atlas didn't just inherit technology, they inherited obligations they can't meet. No wonder they're desperate to shut us down. I paused. Victor, why help us? Atlas paid you well. He closed his eyes briefly. They did, then slashed my final payout based on integration costs. Tyler never caught it. My son lost his shares. They cheated us, too. I swallowed. Does Tyler know you're here? Victor shook his head. He's with Atlas's corporate strategy team. He thinks he's climbing the ladder. When he learns the truth, he'll understand why I'm here. As I drove back to Austin, a new clarity took hold. This was bigger than my own firing or Atlas's missteps. It was about defending the decade we'd poured into Embercore and proving that true innovation can't be acquired, only earned. I looked at my phone and tapped out a message to the team. Game plan in place. Meridian's window is our opening. Let's move. Their replies came like gunfire. Let's roll. Ready. On it. This wasn't just about my termination or Atlas's flawed integration strategy. It was about standing up for everything we built and the clients who depended on it. This was about systematic corporate predation, spotting smaller innovators with deep client relationships, buying them under false pretenses, harvesting their best work, then casting aside everything else. I pulled into my driveway and sat for a moment, heart pounding as the truth settled in. I dialed Priya's number. Contact the team. Meeting at the office tomorrow, 7 a.m., I instructed. We need to accelerate development of our Meridian-compatible module. Jason, pull every scrap of documentation on their grid architecture. Are we going after Meridian directly? Jason asked, excitement and caution in his voice. Not yet, I replied steadily. We prepare. They'll come to us when the first cracks appear, and they will. For 8 sleepless weeks, we worked around the clock. In our tiny office, screens glowed late into the night as the engineers built a bridge between NovaGrid's flexible core and Meridian's bespoke infrastructure. I stayed deliberately distant from any direct asks of Meridian's team. Atlas's watchful legal eyes were everywhere. Instead, we compiled a dossier of every public stumble in Atlas's integration. Press releases announcing minor delays, forum posts lamenting blackouts, regulatory notices for missing compliance data. Meanwhile, Victor quietly turned up the volume in his industry circle. At energy sector conferences, he asked pointed questions about forced migrations without ever naming names. The buzz spread through the exact circles where Meridian's technical leadership congregated. 5 weeks in, our foresight paid off. Atlas kicked off phase 1 of Meridian's migration, and 3 substations went dark, leaving compliance reports incomplete. Publicly, Meridian's CTO Vanessa Powell chalked it up to expected teething issues. Privately, Victor's sources said she was incandescent. 2 weeks later, Phase 2 collapsed in a 4-hour data blackout across a major service region. Meridian issued a formal notice of deficiency under their 99% uptime guarantee. Atlas's response was revealing. They blamed inherited architectural flaws from Embercore, laying the groundwork to avoid penalties by claiming the original system was faulty. That was our opening. I drafted a forensic report showing the failures were not Embercore's doing, but Atlas's ill-fitting integration. Victor hand-delivered it to Vanessa. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Coffee tomorrow, 2 p.m. West Side Rowers, BP. At the cafe, Vanessa wasted no time. Your analysis matches ours, she said quietly. Atlas forced us into this transition to dodge contract clauses. We need a partner who understands Meridian's unique demands. I leaned forward. NovaGrid built its architecture from scratch. We're ready to plug in and guarantee performance from day one. Her eyes flickered with relief and resolve. Let's make this happen. As I walked back to my car, I realized we were no longer reacting. We were leading the next chapter, turning Atlas's miscalculation into our greatest opportunity. The regulatory stakes are too high, I said, leaning forward. You have options. Vanessa Powell looked wary. Do I? Our contract with Atlas is ironclad. Breaking it could trigger penalties exceeding our entire annual tech budget. Unless Atlas is in material breach, I suggested, sliding a slim USB stick across the table. Their integration failures constitute that breach. My team's legal analysis is on this drive. I pushed a second one across. And this contains our technical overview, NovaGrid's platform, built for exactly these issues. We can deploy within 3 weeks with zero interruption to your reporting. She pocketed both drives without a word. 2 days later, Atlas announced an emergency stabilization effort for Meridian Systems, an implicit admission of failure. Their stock plunged 8% by market close. That afternoon, an official RFP landed in my inbox from Meridian Energy Group, invoking emergency procurement rules. My pulse raced. This is it, I told the team. Meridian needs us, and we have exactly what they need. Jason glanced around our cramped office. Should we worry about Atlas's legal muscle once they realize? I shook my head. They engineered this crisis. Now they'll watch us solve it. The Meridian board convened at 10 a.m. Thursday. By 10:45, my phone buzzed. Unanimous approval, Vanessa's text read. Expedited contract. Implementation starts Monday. Within the hour, our council signed off. Contract clean, no hidden traps, full implementation fees plus a 3-year maintenance agreement. The deal secured NovaGrid's future and included indemnification against any Atlas litigation. By mid-afternoon, the news rippled through the sector. Atlas's shares slid another 12%. Predictably, Atlas's lawyers filed an emergency injunction to block our Meridian engagement. Monday morning, our team arrived at the courthouse to find Atlas flanked by 4 attorneys and Elena Ruiz herself, face pale with controlled fury. The judge reviewed the documents and then addressed Atlas's counsel directly. Your non-compete forbids use of proprietary Ember core systems, yet evidence shows NovaGrid's independent architecture. Moreover, urgent public interest demands uninterrupted utility service. With that, the injunction was denied. In the hallway, Elena caught my eye. This isn't over, she murmured. I looked past her toward my team, waiting by the courthouse steps. This was never about winning or losing, I replied. It was about building something that works. 18 months after signing Meridian, NovaGrid had grown to 27 employees and leased an entire floor in downtown Austin, the windows framing the hill country we'd first sketched our plans against. Our Meridian rollout finished ahead of schedule with zero downtime. Word spread fast. 4 more major utilities migrated to NovaGrid within the next year. Atlas eventually dropped their lawsuit to stem the bleeding in their energy division. Elena Ruiz was reassigned to a peripheral subsidiary out of state. Tyler Allen left for a startup incubator, undoubtedly wiser for the experience. Victor Allen, Embercore's founder, never joined NovaGrid formally, but he stopped by often, pride shining in his eyes as he watched a vision reborn. On the 2nd anniversary of my firing, my phone chirped with an email from Victor. You've built something far better than Embercore ever could. Some victories take time. I closed my laptop and stepped into our conference room where the NovaGrid team toasted our latest module launch. These weren't just colleagues, they were partners who'd bet on competence and integrity over corporate maneuvers. Later, on my deck as the sun dipped below the Texas sky, I realized the sting of betrayal had given way to gratitude. Without Atlas's arrogance and Elena's dismissal, NovaGrid might never have existed. Getting pushed out of the wrong place, I'd found exactly the right one.